Hello everybody, it's Carl Bown here from Comic Culture and the Game Store in Lincoln in England, and today we're going to have a look at what's in the box for The Dark Sands, War in North Africa 1940 to 1942 by GMT. The game was designed by Ted Racer, who is a very experienced designer and designed one of my favourite games of all time, which is Paths of Glory, and he's based on the system from the Dark Valley, which was the Eastern Front in World War II, so Operation Barbarossa onwards. Looking at the box, a nice bit of art, looks like it's been done by Roger McGowan, quite stylish. On the back, got a picture of the map, some of the historical information, pictures of the units, description of the contents and the scale. So it's battalion, regiment and division scale, so quite a wide scale, 1 to 2 month turns. They reckon 2 to 4 hours for a scenario. The campaign is 18 hours, it reckons, which seems an awful long time because it's not the most complicated game. Obviously 1 or 2 players. I think it worked quite well solitaire because it is chit draw, one of my favourite systems, and they always work really well. It says 14 years and up, and the map scale is each hex is 4.5 or 9 miles, which I'll explain when I show you the maps. Okay, so let's have a look at what's in the box. Taking the lid off. First of all, we've got the rules of play, 20 pages, nice bit of colour in there. Okay, they're very pretty, they're shiny paper, but not difficult to read. I'll come through onto those in a bit more detail later. Playbook, that's also 20 pages, again, colour. Now, half of this entire playbook is an extended example of play. So from page 11 onwards, all of that is an extended example of play. Apart from I think the very last page where it's got some designer's notes. Here you've got the description of the scenarios. Again, I'll do a little bit more on that later on. So action chits. Now I said it was a chit draw game. What happens is you put chits in a cup, you draw them out. There are various different kinds of chits, and each turn a different set of chits goes in the cup. So, the reinforcements might go in, you might get O'Connor, you might get Rommel, you might get the Africa Corps, 21st Corps turn up. And the nice thing about this is it gives you a sort of historical accuracy as regards to when people turned up and when people sort of left. So, they don't get activated anymore. When you activate it, you're activating a divisional headquarters, and that allows you to activate the units in there. But there are different kinds of chits. There are move chits, there are move or combo chits, there are half move chits, and there are half move or combat at a -1 die roll modifier combo chits. So obviously they're fairly weak. One of the nice restrictions on the game is that you can only have 2 goes in a row. If you've both got chits in the cup and the Axis have had 2 chits in a row, then the Allies get to go next. Also, some of the chits, when you've got initiative, you're allowed to just draw that chit out first. And on the back it tells you in more detail what each of the chits does. Very nice, very useful bit of card there, so in a chit pull game. Then you've got 2 of these sheets. They're obviously CRT, you've got assault CRT, you've got mobile CRT, you've got the die roll modifiers, disruption table, I'll tell you about that in a second, combat results key obviously. Then on the back you've got terrain effects charts and a really nice clear sequence of play. Really nicely done, good typical GMT quality, they always do lovely stuff. Then you've got the maps. Now, there are 2 maps in this game. Obviously, if you know anything about North Africa, you know that it basically runs along a narrow strip of land at the top of Africa. So the maps are always going to be long. Now, what they've done on this is to make it fit on your table a little bit better. They've had the Western map and the Far Eastern map, which I'll show you in a second, are at a scale of 9 miles to the hex. The central map, where more of the action happens, is at a scale of 4.5 miles to the hex. And there are rules, obviously, for how you get from one map to the other. The map's really nice. It's got all the reinforcements at the top, so you can see when things are coming on. Again, it's got the CMTs on there, terrain effects chart. Lovely, lovely map. Really functional. Really good to play on. Really clear. No dark areas where you can't read. Looking over here, you've got obviously the eastern map, so all the way over to Alexandria in the corner, El Alamein, very famous place. You've got more reinforcements at the top, turn record track, Commonwealth VPs, Axis VPs. So lovely, really excellent design from a company that's one of the best in the business. Here we have the West map from the Dark Sands. You can see the Axis reinforcement schedule with the Germans and the Italians. That goes up to turn 14, and then you've got some of the Allied reinforcement schedule, which continues onto the next map. Mobile CRT, you can see the die roll modifiers and the combat results key. And then you've got boxes for available assets and rebuildable units. Then you've got the West map, which is obviously Libya. You've got Benghazi, and then El Agheila down in the corner. There's your terrain effects chart, a picture of the different kinds of terrain. Then you've got the centre map, okay, which is where a lot of the action will happen. And you've got Tobruk, which is a very famous and important port for the Allies especially. Changed hands a couple of times. And then down here on the coast you've got Bardia and Sollum. Let's have a look at the counters. So that is all the combat counters. There's 2 sheets of counters, but there's one of combat counters and one of obviously chits and markers and the things that you draw out the cup. So you've got Italians, you've got Germans, and you've got the British. Basic 3 numbers on the counter is attack, defense and movement. You've got headquarters. Some of the units have got a disruption modifier. Now, when you move a unit, if it's on a road or a railway, you can effectively move it an infinite number of movement points, so long as you stay on a road or railway for the entire movement. But at the end of that, or if you move from one map to the next, when you move, you have to roll to see if you're disrupted. Simple D6 roll, you roll a 5 or a 6 and you become disrupted. And disrupted, basically it doesn't allow you to use this extended movement anymore, and it gives you a modifier in combat, whether you're attacking or defending. So obviously you don't want that to happen. Some units, if they've got the +1, they're more likely to be disrupted. Okay, really simple system, because one of the things about Africa is, you can travel vast distances if there's nobody there, but obviously as soon as you come upon somebody you have to stop. Okay, double-sided counters, so they get flipped when they're used. You can see some of these are assets. So you've got fortified boxes, you've got air. So you can see here you've got the Luftwaffe and you've got the RAF, and obviously you've got some Italian aircraft as well, and they can be applied to battles. Here are the chits. So you've got disrupted markers, you've got control markers, you've got your attack markers when you're marking your attacks. Here you've got some of the chits that go in the cup. So there you can see Rommel. He can go in the cup and he has a certain effect. He's red around him. I think that means that he's an initiative chit. So if you've got him available, you can pick him first. I think that's right. I might need to check that. Again, control markers, obviously more attacks, outer supply markers. The supply system works really well, I think. It's a chit. Okay, there are chits that go in the cup. So if you look, go back to this, sorry for a second. You've got chits, and when they go in the cup, there's 2 logistics chits. You check if anybody's out of supply on both sides. So they don't apply to one particular side. So, if you want to send your guys out of supply, and it's a trace supply system, traced obviously along the roads and the rails, you can go out of supply, but you take that risk that if the logistics chit comes out, you will then be out of supply, and that's out of supply until the next time a logistic chit comes out. On the other hand, it means that if 2 logistics chits come out early, that's quite hard to say, then you're fairly safe for the rest of that turn. Okay, so you can push and you can go a little bit further. Having a quick look at the playbook again, you've got the scenarios. So you've got compass, which is basically probably best as a solitaire scenario, because it's really the victory conditions. There's some comments on there which are actually quite amusing if you look at that. And basically the British are supposed to win that one. Sunflower. Oops. All of these can be used as the start of the campaign as well. So then you've got Crusader, one of the most famous battles of the war, operations of the war. Then you've got Gazala. Okay, you've also got, like I say, the extended examples of play. Summary of the zona control effects, which I think is quite useful as well, and outer supply effects. Often these things are dotted around the rules, so when you've got them in one place like that, that just makes it easier. Going back to the rules again. Like I say, I really like chit pull systems. They're ideal for the solitaire player. They're ideal for a game where you can just wander off and leave it and come back later on. Nice use of colour. They're not gaudy. They're just easy to read. Nice font. So you've got your victory conditions. You've got your stacking, which is basically 4 units, but no more than 3 divisions, regiments or brigades. Description of zone of control, rail line, logistics, headquarters, what all the different combat units are. Okay, all the assets, so you've got things like anti-tank guns and artillery, garrisons, special units as well. Forts, unit placement, then you've got a sequence of play. Now, I was having a discussion actually with somebody earlier about this. I really like a sequence of play earlier in the rules. I think it's one of the first things that people should put in, but it's not a particularly complicated one, so I don't think it's difficult to find. Then you got replacements. You can build units back up. I mean, obviously it covers quite a long period. It covers over 2 years, so you know things are going to die and then come back. Then you've got the action phase, which is the meat and of the game. Then you've got discussions what you can do when you can do an action phase. So you've got movement actions, you've got combat actions, what happens when you get disrupted. Okay, logistics action, obviously when you check to see who's out of supply. Reinforcements action, mostly the reinforcements come on when you get a chit, so that adds a bit more variety to the game. And then what happens at the end, removing disruption counters, things like that. 20 pages of rules, really easy to pick up. I think anybody that's an experienced gamer will get into this very quickly. I think the production is nice. It's actually, I think, a pretty good value game. I mean, it's definitely, if you've got any interest in North Africa, and obviously I'm British, North Africa's always been something the North African campaign is something I've always followed ever since I was a kid. Then I think this is probably worth picking up. Especially if you like chit pull systems, then definitely get it. In fact, I'm reading this, I've been enjoying the rules so much that I'm actually tempted to go and buy a copy of Dark Valley now, despite the fact that Eastern Front is not my main theatre of interest. Okay, hope you've enjoyed that. I've had a look what's inside the box for the Dark Sands. If you like the video, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up if you want to. Obviously it doesn't really make any difference, so you don't have to, but it is nice. And look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks very much. Goodbye.